Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to crank and rank with Old Head and Eddie Sparxx. Well, that's a new way to do it.
Hey, I like that. I like that. Yeah. That's snappy.
Yeah. And for those of you who are new, Cranked and Ranked is a podcast and YouTube show where we rank artist discographies most of the time. That's what we're doing here, where we talk about an entire discography of full-length albums and we rank them for what we feel is the least good to the most good, sometimes the shittiest. In this case, that's not the case at all. This is literally least good to most good. And we have a long-ass discussion about it with lots of tangents. So if you're new, welcome. I am Old Head. With me, as always, Eddie Sparxx.
That's me. That's me. You see me right there. That's where I am.
I like the Black Gives Way to Blue shirt you got going there for the Alice in Chains. I don't think I've ever seen that shirt before.
Yeah, I cut the sleeves off it because it got a little tight, but
because you got to show off the brown guns. This is me. I like on Tuesday. I was out in the sun for 3 hours in this shirt, in this kind of shirt, and that's all I've got. It's still white as can be.
Out there in the Texan heat. If anything, that's kind of impressive that you did.
My skin is like, fuck it. We've been this color for 45 years.
You're literally evolving to not tan.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Hopefully my daughter has that one too. She'll never burn in the sun. Well, that's not true. When I was younger, I would burn all the time. I was miserable. But anyway,
I've only ever had like bad sunburn one time, and that was like across my shoulders and my back. And I just remember like being fine initially, and then the following day I woke up and it literally just felt like someone had lit my back on fire. And then days later it all peeled off, and I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, no wonder this gives people cancer. This is fucking horrible. Like, but yeah. I
mean, I understand that a lot of people find tan skin attractive, but if you take that part away from it, going out in the sun with the intention of the sun doing something to your body, that's fucking insane. Like, why do that? It's like, I'm just gonna walk into a fire for a second and then walk out of the fire,
Yeah. You ever seen that thing, in the alpha male sphere, there was that thing about tanning your balls. You ever hear about that? That was a thing. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
it's just some way to market looking like a dickhead.
It's just because they didn't want to have to break it to their girlfriends. Look, I know you think this is this beautiful golden tan, but once you go down there, I'm sorry, it's going to be a different story.
It's like visible cartoon glow. Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm fine with with my milky white skin.
Milky white skin.
All right. Anyway, moving on to our band today, who none of which have milky white skin. They are all Latinos. But we are going to be covering the discography of Death Angel, which, in my opinion, when it comes to, like, they're considered second wave thrash, but they're one of those bands that, to be completely honest, if you're putting together like a group of thrash bands that you think are the best, Death Angel goes in the list before Overkill and Exodus do, in my opinion. Not that they obviously didn't come before them, but in the output that they've put out, especially the early stuff, not to give away my ranking here, it is some of the best shit, I
was gonna say, knowing our reputation, I don't think that's gonna be a secret.
Nobody's gonna be surprised by the ranking, I guess. But
at least we're honest about our biases, but
and like I say many times, our ranking isn't definitive. It really should be a thing where you put all the rankings together, and then that's the ultimate ranking. What does everybody all together say? What's the average? But So yeah, Death Angels, started in the mid '80s, and they were all really young. Like I think
Yeah,
the drummer when they started was like 14 or something like that. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's insane. And but
A
just
literal fetus. Just
yeah, he was a youngin, and in different forms. They went for a while, they broke up. We'll get to that, and then they got back together, and they're still kicking it today. Still a killer thrash band, in my opinion, one of the best out there doing it. And as usual, we talk about where this band came into our lives. Now this is actually a different one for me
hmm,
because I don't remember ever seeing any Death Angel on Headbangers Ball when I was young. Because I think once I started really watching it religiously, it was well into '91, and I don't think they had a couple, they had a couple videos, but I don't think they were really playing them anymore.
hmm.
And so it was several years later, once I really got into like all things metal, that I was like, I always see the name Death Angel, and what are they the same as Dark Angel? Because one's death and one's dark. They're both angels.
Yeah.
So of course I learned, that who Death Angel were and became a fan pretty quickly. But there's not really a big backstory with me and Death Angel. Just one of those things where along the way I discovered them, and I don't even really remember what the first thing I heard was. I'm sure it
Yeah.
was. I think it was Act Three. I think that was probably the first album I heard. But yeah, I don't know. What about you? Are they in any video games that you can think
Uh,
of?
nah, not
Dang.
any I,
Come on,
not any
Rockstar
I
Games.
founded.
Next Grand Theft Auto. Just put the next Grand Theft Auto in 1989, and then throw some Death Angel in there.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly support this. Um, but yeah, for me, aside from a couple songs here or there, my first deep dive into Death Angel was with this episode.
Nice.
They're a name I've seen countless times, but the only song I really knew was Voracious Souls, and that's a fucking awesome song.
Uh huh.
Um, they're just one of those bands that I just didn't get around to until now, and needless to say, this is one of those times where I'm like, "Oh shit, what the fuck have I been doing all this time?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, with what you're considering the second wave of thrash, if there's a big four of the second wave of thrash, Testament obviously is number one.
Yeah.
Um, I would put I'd put Death Angel at number two, even though I like Sacred Reich more, but Sacred Reich would be in there as well. And then, fuck, I don't know who the fourth. Who would the fourth? Let you guys fill it in out there. Who's the fourth of the second wave big four of
Forbidden,
thrash?
maybe, but they are a little more
Yeah,
underground. They're a further layer, I would say, right?
I mean, they put out several albums. We talked about all of them on the episode we did. So I think they have a big
True.
enough output. I think their output is just as big as Sacred Reich. So
True.
we we'll go with Forbidden, and they got back together, kind of.
Hmm.
Russ Anderson is not the vocalist, and I'm still holding my excitement for hearing what the new vocalist will bring if they make new music. I'm not really interested in a band getting a new vocalist and going out and playing old songs with a new guy trying to sing the old songs. That's not interesting to me. If you're going to replace a vocalist, make new music first, and
Hmm.
then I'll see how I feel about it. But once again, that's not my band, so whatever. That's just my thoughts. Anyway, not talking about Forbidden. That's another episode we did, and we did Sacred Reich, and we did Testament. We've done those bands,
Yeah.
but finally, Death Angel. They have 9 full length albums that we're going to cover today, and shit, it's a packed show. We might as well just get to it. As usual, throwing it over to Eddie Sparxx to start us off with his number nine Death Angel album.
Two number nines, a number nine Lord.
I love that I know what
But
that is. I know what that is now.
yeah, yeah. And I love that we both have like a reference to bring to the table when number nine comes up.
Yeah, mine is the
Like,
Beatles.
yep, number nine. I am warning you with peace and love.
I've got too much to do.
They're going in the bin.
Anyway,
Yeah,
peace and love, peace and love.
peace and love. Peace and love. Okay, right. My number 9. I have a sneaking suspicion, right, that there is perhaps a chance for us to have matched up based on production alone.
You just said that word, and I'm like, probably.
Yeah. So here I am with my number 9, Killing Season.
Oh no!
No? Oh shit!
That is not the worst sounding Death Angel album, sir. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Cool.
No, Killing Season is not my number 9. Go ahead.
Okay, so my number 9 is Killing Season, and this is a case of production ruining an otherwise well-written experience for me, because the songs on here really cool.
Yeah.
The production compressed to fuck and really fatiguing to listen to at points. So Lord of Hate is a good opener. Sonic Beatdown is a cool song, even if I can't help but feel like the title belongs on a new metal album as opposed to a Death Angel album,
Yeah.
Dethroned. I love mid-paced thrash. That sweet spot of riffage is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Carnival Justice is a punky thrasher. Buried Alive is groovy. Soulless has a great riff to it. The Noose is kind of punky. They throw in every now and a kind of like more hardcore punky edged song here or there.
Yeah.
And that's present throughout their whole discography. When Worlds Collide has some cool riffage going on. God versus God has some like tribal drumming vibes going on here, which, me likey. Steal the Crown is a stomping riffer, and Resurrection Machine is a long melodic closer. But honestly, like, this album to me has that kind of brick-walled but like almost side-chained production to where it like you can hear it limiting itself almost, where it's like instead of it sounds like because there's no room for it to
that's a really great example. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like where it just it feels like it's in a box as opposed to playing in a room, to the point where your ears can't really keep up with the sonic qualities going on. That being said, I had a good time listening to every one of these albums. So I'm gonna hand it over to you with your number 9.
My number 9 that I think is the worst sounding Death Angel album, the 2004 album The Art of Dying, which is their 4th album. So there's 2 major reasons why this one comes in last for me. First off, I don't like the production. It's very dry and
2004
feels almost demo-y in a way. Like it just doesn't suit the music. And then second of all, it's their first album they put out in 14 years. So they had essentially broken up and then got back together. And then their first thing out of the gate is kind of underwhelming. Because like, to put it into perspective, these 3 albums behind me in the podcast world, I've got Ultraviolence, Frolic, yeah, and Act 3. I don't know why I said frolic and it sounded like a word that didn't exist, like frolic through the park.
The Death Angel classic, Frolic.
But I have those 3 albums behind me, and these are 3 original pressings. 3 of the most money I've spent on records right here.
Really?
Not the most, but if I put together a grouping of maybe a dozen albums that I actually spent a good amount on, these 3 are 3 of them, because I love these albums so much.
Yeah. I was going to say, so how much did those cost you? Do you reckon,
I think
combined?
Act 3, combined? Fuck.
Yeah.
Couple $300 maybe.
Fuck, man.
Altogether. Probably.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit less, but but I wanted, when it comes to like the classic thrash that I love. I mean, I paid a pretty good amount for the first four Slayer albums as well, just because I'm like, look, I want these to sound like it's vinyl from 1986 or whatever. I don't want
Yeah.
a remastered 180 gram pressing that just, it doesn't feel the same to me. And I know that's the
Mm.
stupidest thing, but there's something, there's a sound. I want, the little bit of crackle and the life that the vinyl has had. I want that music to sound that way. And so there's some albums that if I can't find them at some sort of reasonable price, I just won't get them. Unless they're
Mm.
from the 90s when all of a sudden everything went digital anyway. And I'm just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But anyway, these three, I love them so much. And I'll get
Mm.
to why later on in the episode. But this album comes out, and first of all, the production isn't great, but all of a sudden the songwriting is all of a sudden more average thrash band stuff, which none
Yeah.
of these three albums are average thrash band stuff. There's thrashiness on there, followed by songs where you go, I was not fucking expecting that.
Yeah.
But now it's almost like, and I think they've said something about it in the past, that this was the album where they came out and they said maybe we should do what's expected. What would the thrash fans like? And you can tell that that's what they were trying to do, but their hearts weren't in it.
I
There's
agree.
there's a lot of bland riffs and songs in this for Death Angel. For an average thrash band, this is a fucking great album. This is just
Mm.
not a good Death Angel album. And I still, they're still a great band, but for a comeback album, it's underwhelming. Even though there's still a little bit of a variety of songs, the adventurousness that they had in the past is not there, and it's not bad. But I
Mm.
do think that I would like it more if the production was better. But
Hmm.
so you've got that on top of it. It's just, it's fine. It's a fine album. It's definitely not a go-to for me, but um yeah, everything about it, I just listen to it and go, God, the production could have been a little bit better. The songwriting could have been a little bit better. I mean, it's still good, but yeah, it's my least favorite Death Angel album, The Art of Dying. It's just little bit of a disappointment in their discography for me.
Fair enough. I can jump straight off of that because my number 8 is The Art of Dying. Um,
Awesome.
and I pretty much agree with everything you said, but this one had the edge over Killing Season for me because it didn't feel as weirdly sidechain compressed
Sure. Okay.
as Killing Season did. So the also a thing it had over Killing Season was the variety going on, but the
That's funny
variety in
because I feel like
question.
Killing Season has a way better variety, but I don't know. It's weird. Two different sets of ears hearing albums.
Yeah, for me though, like the variety on this, rather than the variety that you got on the first three albums, that those just sounded like Death Angel genre hopping, whereas this, well, I'll just get into it because I'm going to bring up a lot of other band names, and it sounds like them like ticking the boxes. We've got this song, we've got this song.
Yeah, yeah,
So like Thrown to the Wolves is a cool comeback opening track, complete with some whoa-ohs in there. Um, Five Steps to Freedom gives off kind of a John Bush era Anthrax kind of vibe. Thicker Than Blood feels like it's got a bit of a Motorhead influence, tapping into that sort of thing. The Devil Incarnate, the Alice in Chains harmonies in there.
hmm
I'm just, the thing is, this album strikes me as fuck. What was our identity again? So they're
yeah,
like pulling from all these places,
yeah.
and it's like it's not like the way they were doing it on the first few albums where it was like kind of subtle. This is like, you get Famine, which has got a sassy edge to the riffs, but Prophecy just sounds like a late '90s Sepultura demo. No, still has some punk energy in there at times. Spirit is hooky and melodic vocally. Land of Blood is another kind of punky track. Never Leave Me has, you know, some slow grooves with some double kick in it, which
Mm,
me likey.
yeah,
And Word to the Wise is a nice little melodic closer, but it's not it's not up to the bar that they set for themselves by being so fucking sick.
yeah,
And I feel like, you know, this album strikes me as we're back, but we're still finding our feet. Um,
yeah,
and there is there is like kind of a trajectory with their later output from Art of Dying onward that to me is just kind of upward. It's like, okay, what was kind of lacking in the last one? We'll sort that out. And they've basically just done that.
yeah.
Yeah.
They've become, we'll get to it, but they've become almost like the, Mach 2 of Death Angel now, where they still to me don't sound like the first three albums aside from Mark's vocals, but um musically they've honed it into like what they want to sound like.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound like the same band necessarily to me, but I'll talk more about that.
Fair.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Are you done with that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty much wrapped up with the Art of Dying. Over to you for your number
Cool.
eight.
Yeah, let's bring us all the way to the most recent album for number 8, Humanicide, from
Okay.
2019. So at this point, Death Angel have fallen into the trap. It's not necessarily a trap. I'm not in a band like this, so I can't give a really in-depth opinion on what it would be like. But so many bands that have been around for a while seem to just find a producer they like working with, and they never leave. So therefore, occasionally it's just multiple albums that are interchangeable, because
Yeah.
it's almost like they just leave the presets on the board and they're like, all right, Death Angel's coming back in, turn on the Death Angel presets, and then it just sounds like the same album. And a lot of the times over the past 4 albums or so, the songs they're writing are all kind of similar things except for a few standouts. But Humanicide's the first one where it's the same producer, but all of a sudden the production isn't as good. And I'm like, what happened here? Because it's not bad at all. But you play it next to the previous 3 albums, and all of a sudden there's something happens where I'm like, did he decide to tweak the presets, and all of a sudden that just fucked it up? I mean, it sounds different, so that's good, but also not as good because it doesn't sound as good. Good. But it's also a step down in songwriting from the previous few albums that they had done, and it's so weird having the brain that I have when it comes to music, because I wish that I could join in with everybody and immediately just be super stoked no matter what the album is if it's a classic band. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of people like that. Like Humanicide comes out and everyone's like, album of the year. And I'm just like, did you listen to like 2 albums this year? Because like, I'm like, Humanicide's a good album. Like, don't get me wrong. It's fucking Death Angel. But sometimes I feel like I can't just let myself go and just be excited that there's an album and I don't care. But I'm always just like, if you're a band that I love, I'm going to be critical and I'm going to compare this to what you did before and what you did 30 years ago, while still being very cognizant of the fact that you're older and you're probably very different people now.
A little older, a little wiser. We're starting to get hair in really weird places.
Yeah, just like that. But so that's why, like, when this album came out, I kept listening to it over and over again, waiting for it to click with me the way it seemed to be clicking with everybody else. And I'm like, man, it's not bad, and it's got some cool standout moments, but in the discography of Death Angel, this is like where 10 years from now, Humanicide's not going to be a very memorable album for me. Especially if they keep going and they end up doing better things, or who knows what they'll end up doing. But at this point, it's been so much of the same for 4 albums that it just makes me go, something else needs to happen now. And I don't think I'll jump off if they put out the same kind of thing again next time, but it gets close because like it's happened with me with Iron Maiden. I just got to the point where I just went
Megadeth.
with Megadeth. You get to the point where I'm just like, man, this middle of the road thing with the same production is, just not doing it for me at all. But once again, I'm just one guy, and there are plenty of people that love what Death Angel are doing now, and why should they change? So
True.
But yeah,
there is that thing though where you look at something like Act 3, the risk taken on that album with some of the stuff, like holy shit, that album cover does not tell me there's funk on it, right? And then there's like multiple instances of stuff that would be right up home with Mother's Milk.
And a fucking ballad. There's a ballad on it too.
Yeah.
So,
but that's when you've got a fucking magnum opus. Is when that ties together as seamlessly as it does.
Yeah. And so now, like I said, I understand that they're a different band. It's only 2/5 of that original band is now still there. So I understand it's not going to be the same thing, and I'm not that clueless that I'm going to expect everything to be the same, because I hate it when people do that with Metallica. Really, the only reason I'm bringing this up is in the context of this ranking. I'm like, Humanicide is just sort of like, all right, it's Death Angel doing Death Angel, and it's not as good as the album before, so it ends up going at number 8 for me.
Cool. Well, rather nicely, my number 7 is Humanicide.
All right, it's almost a matchup. I like it.
Yeah, again, it's that thing of they've done it,
Yeah.
They've done it already. Like for me, and this is not to give too much away, but as far as I'm concerned, from Art of Dying through to Evil Divide and Dream Calls for Blood, there's like a upward thing where it's like,
sure,
these guys are getting back to knowing what they want to sound like.
And that's a good point that you're bringing up too, because I think part of my feelings for Humanicide are based on the fact that I thought Evil Divide was so good. So it taints the experience a little bit. I just said taint.
Hey.
Taint my balls, taint my ass. What is it? Okay.
Nice.
That's from the very end of Anthrax's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath cover. Like the song ends and you hear them go, "Taint my balls, taint my ass. What is it?"
Oh, dude. We should do a Grouped and Removed on Anthrax at some point. That could be fun.
Oh my god.
We're thinking about doing a more of those. We have hectic life schedules right now, and we're just trying to make it work. So the ranking part can be quite demanding lately. So you might see a few more. You might see a few more of our spin-off type series creeping in a little more frequently. But we ain't going anywhere. We are continuing to fucking grow. Eventually, this is going to be a franchised media empire, the likes of which Disney Plus would cower at. Fuck
yeah! Cranked and Ranked Plus, $9.99 a month.
The Cranked and Ranked cinematic universe.
But who would we be crossing over with? We'd have to find other people to cross over with, and I don't like anybody.
Oh, dude, that'd be fucking sick. If we just ended up, we need to start our own streaming service. We'd be doing shit like, Mandalorian or whatever, where it's just like the origin story of Cranked and Ranked, but it's complete bullshit. Like it's just, it's like the Weird Al did a documentary on his life, and apparently it's like complete made up shit. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see it. We should just fucking like illegally rip all of the Mandalorian and have very clever nerdy people deep fake our faces onto all of the characters. So like you're the Mandalorian and I'm the Grogu baby Yoda looking thing.
I know
And
nothing about that show. So
yeah.
who's the Mandalorian? I don't know.
Mandalorian's the Boba Fett looking dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because Boba Fett's a Mandalorian. It's like it's all really cool. It ties together. But fuck, yeah.
This goes into that thing like I asked last time, where I was like, somebody who knows how to do AI.
Yeah.
Let's make a show. Because I've looked into it. My wife's tried to help me too, and it's like, look, this guy says it only takes 3 hours, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna go read his article, and I'm like, that's way. I don't know how to do any of those things, but he makes it seem so. All you gotta do is go to these 5 different programs and go blah, 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 and then you have this video, and I'm all like, I barely know how to use my one computer. I know just enough to get by. So we need somebody where we can put it in order and be like, here, you use AI, and we'll give you everything you need, and then you create this Mandalorian-esque cranked and ranked origin story.
Oh man, the Rankalorian.
Oh,
The ranked DeLorean. There we go. Cool.
And there has to be a DeLorean in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of his ship, he's just flying the DeLorean.
DeLorean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
nice.
Good. Where were we?
We're on Humanicide, my number 7.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
So yeah. Where the fuck was I?
I don't think you started yet. The track
no,
listing
I did.
yet.
I have not started. Now here's the thing. I have nothing but good things to say about the music on Humanicide. The only problem is, it's just what you'd expect from Death Angel at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's all quality stuff, and had it not come on the tail of a bunch of killer stuff, it would be higher. But it's just kind of, it's rendered a little stagnant when it's more of the same. So, Humanicide is an awesome opening song. Divine Defector is a hyperdrive level pounding song. Aggressor, I love shouty gang vocals, so that's a mwah from me. I Came for Blood, not to be confused with I Come Blood by Cannibal Corpse, who gave us one of our best ever episodes.
Also, that sounds like a song about a weird fetish that somebody has.
Yeah.
Like, I came for blood.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can get me off anymore.
Typo negative. But yeah, that's a band we need to get around to too.
We will one day.
Yeah. So Immortal Behated, Groover, Alive and Screaming, Hooky Thrasher, The Pack, great stuff. Ghost of Me, shouty gang vocals are a fuck yeah. Revelation Song, it feels to me like if Pantera did more of an epic metal thing. Of Rats and Men, melodic yet pounding riffage, and The Day I Walked Away, cool closing track. Honestly, song wise, it's great thrash.
Yeah.
But in this ranking full of high quality stuff, it's just, I would prefer if they'd taken more risks. There's only so much excitement you can have for something you've heard, So, as much as it pains me to say it, because the contents of this album, as far as I'm concerned, for me, my bottom 2, there's a big jump to the rest of it. So yeah, Humanicide is my number 7.
Okay.
Over to you.
All right. And for my number 7, we're getting into the discussion about the trajectory of their stuff from this century. My number 7 is Relentless Retribution from 2010, which is their 6th album. And honestly, like, it's the beginning of of modern Death Angel.
Yeah.
Almost like the third stage, because you have the original 3, then they got back together and there was a couple albums where they still had the original drummer, and and it's almost like they're trying to figure out where to go. And they did one album that I think isn't very good and one that's really good. But
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, with Relentless Retribution, they found the producer they want to work with. They kind of settled in with like, all right, this is who we are now as a band. So that's a good thing about Relentless Retribution is that it does sound fully realized. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
they know what they're doing now. It's a much more straightforward version of Death Angel, but I mean, with like I said, with 2/5 of the original band now in the band,
Yeah.
you can't expect it to always be the same. So I feel like for this version of Death Angel, it kind of begins here. And sometimes it does feel like a different band just with the same vocalist, but other times there's little hints where I go, okay, all right, I see the connection there.
Yeah.
Still really good, just not as unique as what they were doing before. And for me, because I didn't really like Art of Dying very much, but I almost feel like Retribution is almost like a better version of that. Like
Hmm.
they're getting more into the thrashy, but it doesn't sound so much like lip service to the fans or whatever. It sounds more like this is what we want to be doing right now.
Yeah.
And there's some good songs, there's some okay songs, but it's a whole lot of middle of the road metal,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not what
It's
I
that kind
go.
of I was just gonna say you're right. It's that kind of thrash band that's been around a while. Let's cover all of the tempos,
Yeah,
metal, you know?
yeah. So it's done very well. It's just not I don't know. This it's not a good. It's not a
Not your
go
first
to.
choice.
No, not my. But also not one that I would send somebody to as their first Death Angel album. I would.
Hmm.
There's a more recent one that I would probably say is the one that I would send people to, but it's not Relentless Retribution. So that's my number 7. Moving on to number 6.
Which works out nicely because my number 6 is Relentless Retribution. This is almost like we've matched up, like, but we're just one off.
Yeah.
But yeah, Relentless Revolution, major step up in production already. Like
Mhm.
the two albums before it lack in the production area for me. That kills both those albums. But claws in so deep, hooky moments amongst the heavy. Truce is tight. Into the Arms of Righteous Anger is a chunky fucker. River of Rapture, gotta love a well placed skank beat. Absence of Light, love that slow grooving type of heavy. This Hate has some punkiness to it. Death of the Meek, cool Alice in Chainsy vocals. Opponents at Sides, cool Alice in Chainsy vocals. Uh, I chose The Sky, Relentless Thrasher. See, Relentless Retribution, Relentless Thrasher.
Yeah.
I did it clever. Now, here's the thing Volcanic. Love this song,
Mhm.
especially the chorus bass harmonics. My favorite song on the album. And it's not a heavy song, but to me, it was one of those moments where it's like, where is this going? I'm very much into this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you get Where They Lay, which is a pounding closer. But honestly, like I wish there were more moments like Volcanic on this album because it could
Yeah.
have been just ever so slightly more varied and it could have been significantly higher. But it's like you say, it's that safe zone with metal, isn't
Yeah.
it? Where it's like it's not taking any major risks either way. It's just focusing on being good metal, which is what it is.
Yeah.
It, however, renders itself less exciting than albums where risks are taken,
And
which they have done.
it's a weird sort of tightrope act, I guess, when it comes to that kind of thing, because you don't want to just do the shit that the fans expect because that gets boring, but also you don't just want to do all kinds of different varieties of songs just to do it because it's also going to come across as not genuine and it's just not going to feel right. So I mean, I feel like that like this is just the band that they are, and this is what they feel like doing now. And so occasionally these different songs and different parts come out of them, and I feel like they're just letting it happen organically, which is great. But unfortunately, when you do classic shit, that classic shit's always going to be there to haunt you.
Yeah, yeah. That's the curse of the 80s metal band.
I know that all too well with Metallica being my favorite band of all time.
Yeah,
You can't fucking escape the first three albums, people. And I'm just like,
yeah.
look, it's Metallica's fault. They made those albums. They fucked up or didn't
Yeah.
fuck up and then fucked up later, depending on
They
your outlook.
their output was too good. They should have been shittier.
Yeah.
But
Um,
but yeah, that is
it's hard to say.
Lunchbox Retribution.
All right, my number 6 is still going on this trajectory. My number 6 is "The Dream Calls for Blood" from 2013, which is their 7th album, and same producer, more of the same, better written songs in my opinion. Still a bit middle of the road. This one has a really good energy to it, though. Some really good, well written thrashers in it.
Yeah.
At this point, you get the idea of the band they are now. The adventurousness is kind of gone. And some of it's a little bit one note with what they're doing now, with occasional variations here and there, but still really high quality stuff from this band. And really, like I can't really fault it for a lot. Like it's not like an amazing album to me, but it's one of those albums that I listen to it and I go, I don't really have a whole lot of gripes about it. It's if I want to hear some thrashy Death Angel, then Dream Calls for Blood's great. Just not as great as the other 5 albums, which I think at this point, my top 5 is a solid top 5, where I think these 5 albums are fucking great. But moving on to your number 5.
Cool. So my number 5 is now. Let me say this. Let me say this now. My top 5 is where shit gets damn good. So my number 5 is The Evil Divide.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, Evil Divide. I remember when this came out, everybody was raving about it, but it kind of escaped me. Having heard it now, I understand why everybody was raving about it, because it's just really well written stuff. The Moth is a great song and a great way to open the album.
Mm-hmm.
Cause for Alarm is awesome sauce. Lost is a cool melodic track. Father of Lies is more of that awesome sauce. Hell to Pay is just pounding thrash goodness. It Can't Be This, grooving, boiling over track. Hatred United / United Hate. Love Me Some Dive Bombs, can't lie. And there's plenty of those in here. I love when it's used as a blatant tool. I know sometimes, it's kind of a trope. There's a big build up and
Yeah.
I like when, you get the occasional sort of solo going on. Granted, Slayer did many of those.
I was just going to say, Kerry King, we hope you're listening.
Yeah. The world's greatest whammy diver. But yeah. And I say that because it's, he does a lot of whammy dives. Yeah. I like me some dive bombs. Breakaway has some gag vocals in it. Fuck yeah. The Electric Cell, just the musicianship in this band is top notch. Even if the later stuff isn't as risky as their early stuff, they're still all excellent players and nail it. Finally, we got Let the Pieces Fall, which is a great closer. All in all, great fucking album from a older band in the modern day, which you always love to see.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
100%.
Or hear it.
And we've matched up on this one. My number 5 is also The Evil Divide.
Hey.
from 2016. So this is the one that I almost feel like, because of where Death Angel were in their original run and where they are now, Evil Divide to me is like as good of a middle ground as you're going to get. So much so that if somebody doesn't know Death Angel, I would send them to this album first and be like, look, Evil Divide gives you an idea of like the kind of band they are, where they are kind of now, but they're still, for some reason, there, I don't know what happened with this album with them, but there's such a great variety of
Yeah.
songs on here, and they're all really well written. And there's some surprises here and there of things they do where I'm like, man, this is the closest they have come to how I feel about their original three albums in, forever.
Yeah.
And I like it because it really felt like they were branching out on this one. And like I said, it sounds like it came naturally. They weren't trying to say this is an album that's going to have more variety. I feel like they're just dudes that do what they do, and this is what
Yeah.
came out in this particular album. And they're still such an amazing band, and this album is fucking great. And I still do miss the chemistry of the early lineup, but when it comes to like the shit going on now, I think Evil Divide is for this current version of Death Angel, it's the best they've done, and it's a really great modern example, like you said, of an older thrash band still putting out really quality shit. So can't fault it. I think it's a killer album from beginning to end, and so I don't have any gripes at all about it. I think it's great. Evil Divide. Also my number 5, which brings us to number 4, which our number 4s are going to also be. I think these are going to be different, and
Yeah.
then we might be matchy for our top 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive on in because my number 4 is The Dream Calls for Blood.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say this now. When I heard this album, I was in the car, I was driving to band practice, uh, and it ripped my fucking face off. Like I was driving there, and I had a moment of, because I'd listened to them chronologically. I'd listened to all the albums chronologically, and there's a moment, I can't remember if it's in Left for Dead or Son of the Morning, where what's the vocalist called?
Mark, I can never pronounce his last name correctly.
He just belts out this like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
And like it's one of those um moments where this album like you said, has a real energy to it.
I
And
mean, we should take a moment to talk about Mark, because like he is an amazing vocalist, but also a very unique one. Like
yeah.
no, I don't know another vocalist that sounds like him,
Hmm.
and so it's one of those things where, because of that, as long as you have Mark in the band, it's Death Angel, because like that's
Yeah.
his voice is just really recognizable for me, and he's great at what he does.
Yeah, and it's incredible, like some of the stuff he does. Like he doesn't do as much of like the, you know, teapot scream nowadays, but every now and again it'll creep in there, and
Yeah,
every time it does, it's always a treat.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, dude, Left for Dead, like I said, this album blew my face off,
Hmm.
as did Son of the Morning, as well as Fallen, whole album really. Dream Calls for Blood. It's just one long holy shit moment. Like coming off of the heels of Relentless
Lunchbox.
Retribution, yeah, Lunchbox Ocean. Um, I was just like, oh damn, they've upped it another level. They've kicked it into another gear.
Yeah.
Um, and when it comes to speedy modern thrash, this is second to none. This is great stuff. But Succubus brings a bit of the groove in there. Execution slash Don't Save Me. Acoustic bit attached to a groovy thrasher. Caster of Shame is more unrelenting awesome. Detonate is a chunky mid-pace track. empty. I love me some just good trem picking sections where it's
And help, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
like I love when a riff is just that. Sometimes it can be really effective. Just it's one of those like ironically less is more moments, despite the fact it's just hurling fucking ease at you. You
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah.
um,
I'm over here trying to look up to see if I can actually pronounce Mark's last name. Oseguera. Mark Oseguera, right? That's me trying to do the right accent and everything.
well, that's good.
I think that's how you say it. Um, some
Osiguera.
sometimes I'm really good with the Spanish, and other times I look at something and I go, I feel like I'm fucking butchering that. But yeah, given Marcus flowers, because he fucking rules. Anyway, sorry.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool, man. Territorial Instinct slash Bloodlust um, is a sick closer. Album's fucking awesome. Dream Calls for Blood is my personal favorite of the modern era of Death Angel, solely based on its ferocity. You know, when I heard it in the car, I don't know if it hit me at exactly the right mood,
Yeah.
but it just the synapses in here were just going, oh,
And that's the
well,
perfect
guess
that's the
it's a,
perfect
you
that's the
know,
perfect time for it to happen too, when you're on your way to
yeah,
band practice and you just walk in all pumped, like, all right, motherfuckers, and they're like, what the hell
yeah,
happened to him? I was like, yeah, Death Angel on the way.
yeah. Except I showed up 20 minutes before they did. So like I got halfway through the album in the car, and then when I got inside and started putting everything on the drum kit, I had my AirPods in. So they came in and saw me going like, fucking yeah, putting some fucking hi-hats on. And they were
Yeah.
like, you okay, man? You having a seizure over there? And I was like, nah, this album's just fucking rad. But yeah. That is The Dream Calls for Blood, my number 4.
All right, and this is the biggest gap we have in the albums here. My number 4
Yes.
is Killing Season from 2008. So you had an issue with the production, and honestly, like, I have never had an issue with the production on this. It's produced by, speaking of names I can't pronounce, Nick Raskulinez, who's worked with everybody from Mastodon to Rush to you name it. He's made some great sounding albums, and I think it sounds great. But I think probably I also really like this one because it comes after the whatever. What was my last one? What was my number 9? The Art of Dying comes after The Art of Dying,
Hmm.
and it almost feels like the art. Like I said, The Art of Dying was more like, who are we? We're a thrash band. Let's do thrashy type things, and it didn't sound very inspired at all. Whereas, like a few years later, Killing Season, it sounds like a band that's just like, all right, we got the growing pains out of the way, or I don't know, the cobwebs have been brushed off, not only in our performances but in our songwriting and our focus, and this feels to me much more in line with their original 3 albums
Hmm.
than pretty much anything. I don't think I feel like, the production I think is better on Evil Divide than on this, although I like the way this sounds. But I feel like there are unexpected things on Killing Season, and that's what I like about Death Angel, or the Death Angel that I love, is I want, a variety is good, but sometimes the variety is, oh, okay, it's this kind of song. Okay, I kind of know where this is going. Okay, that's where it's going. It still pleases me. Where I think
Yeah.
Killing Season has a lot more of these moments where I go, oh fuck, that was, wherever I thought this was going, that's not where it's going. And
Yeah.
I love those sort of unexpected shifts. And even though this still is a bit more straightforward than their early stuff, I just think there's really good songs on Killing Season, and to me it's very enjoyable, a very energetic, enjoyable album. Really, like, their real sort of like we're back album to me, and it kind of it sits in this weird middle area of Death Angel where they're not quite where they would become for modern Death Angel, still trying to figure things out. But I almost feel like in that, sorry,
There's something kind of embryonic about it, isn't there?
it really does feel like, yeah, like a rebirth. But this is the one where, there's even though they're older guys, there's a young second album energy to this that I really enjoy. And then they get into like, okay, now we're smoothing out the edges, but I think I like the edges of Killing Season. So that's why it's at number 4 for me, which leaves us with the exact same top 3. No surprise to anybody, but will they be in the same? So there is one case where I could see you putting this album higher than me. So we may not match up totally, but we could.
Okay.
We'll find out after this. Welcome back, everybody. I love how in the podcast world, I still don't have any ads, and so it's just like there's no ad. I'll throw in a fake ad,
Yeah.
Coming soon, the Crank DeLorean, the origin story of old Hedicus and Edicus Spartacus.
Origin story of the Crankalorian.
Coming from AI Studios.
All right. Rated R.
Oh, hell yeah, it's going to be rated R. It's going to be decapitations and titties and all sorts of shit. The best things in life. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your number 3?
Tits and execution.
We're going to be cutting tits off, too. They're going to all the things are going to get cut off. Just
everything's tits.
That's going to be that's going to be the thing we're going to do. We're going to give you a little bit of pleasure and then just rip it right from you like a nice pair of jugs, and then immediately they get chopped off with a hacksaw, and you're going to have to deal with it. That's Cranked and Ranked, the origin story.
That's Game of Thrones. Oops, all tits edition.
No, trust no. There's gonna be a bunch of dicks in it too, but they're gonna be left alone. Dicks are just flying freely throughout the Cranked and Ranked episode or origin story, because there's a lot of dick energy in our episodes.
Absolutely. You ever seen those meme templates that they always crack me up? Is where they'll take like a Captain Crunch box, but they'll just like replace the picture with like a bowl of screws, and it'll be like, it's like Captain Crunch, oops, all screws, and it's like I love those. But yeah.
All right, top 3 Death Angel albums. Let's see if we match up with our number 3.
Okay, so do you want to guess what my number 3 is?
Sure, I'll guess.
Okay, go for it.
I think your number 3 is Frolic Through the Park.
You would be wrong. My number 3 is The Ultraviolence.
Sweet, we've matched up on our number 3s. The Ultraviolence from 1987, way back when these were young pups, for real.
One of them was really young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, but like, imagine being that young in that scene. That must have been wicked. Like,
I mean, how many shows would he not be able to get into? It's like they'd have to book themselves for shows and be like, just so you know, our drummer is 14.
I would assume they'd pull in Eazy-E and lie about their age.
Oh yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, but dude, this album fucking rips. When it comes to just ripping thrash, I mean, the opening song is called Thrashers. That's all you need to know, about what you're getting into. Killer opening song. And
Mark doesn't sing that song. That's so weird that they start off their first album with a song sung by somebody who isn't their main vocalist. It's very weird.
But that's the type of risk that's like,
I know, that's the kind of band they are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so off the wall crazy to do that, but it's great. Evil Priest. Now that is what I call an 80s metal song title.
The new compilation. Now that's what I call 80s metal song titles.
Yeah. Voracious Souls is just an underrated 80s thrash classic.
Yeah.
Killers 1. Holy fuck. The high screams on this dude.
Yeah.
He's like approaching whistle register levels of
Mariah Carey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Like it's like I said, the dude can emulate a teapot, and it sounds rad.
Yeah.
Um, the ultra violence, big ass 10+ minute epic instrumental. Um, Mistress of Pain. Mark's vocals are absolutely mental. Final Death is just good old classic 80s thrash, and IPFS is a fun, goofy closer. Um, all in all, it's just really good ripping thrash album. Um,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
And I love the fact that this album, maybe aside from Kill 'Em All, but I would say even more so for a first young band thrash album. This is an insanely ambitious album with
Yeah.
what they're trying to pull off, the length of some of the songs, and they're not like boring songs. It's not a 10-minute boring song. But they are really pushing themselves. And it's almost just, I mean, I can imagine you're a young band and there's all this, great music going on around you. And you're like, where were these, fucking kids? And they really knock it out of the park on this. It's like, that great young energy that I think is what makes some of the best thrash metal. And this is just absolute classic, raw, urgent thrash metal. And they really are already a band that has those thrash elements that if you're a thrash fan, you hear them and you'll go, fuck yeah, this is thrash. But there's plenty of other shit where they clearly are not playing by the same rules that everybody else is playing by. They're their own band from album number 1. And hearing this album, I always get the same feeling because I'm just like, man, this is like, it immediately makes me feel like if I had heard this back in the day and maybe I was older, I would be like, this is just an amazing group of kids that show such an incredible promise on album number 1. Yeah. And it's amazing. It's so much so that now when I see a young new thrash band, I always will go listen to them or watch them and go, all right, so where are these guys on a scale from 1 to Death Angel? Like that's how I look at like young thrash bands. There's a young thrash band from Houston called Nemesis that they just put out their debut album. I just saw them several weeks back, and they are literally like Death Angel young, and they're just like a young Megadeth. Like,
wow,
everything about them, I'm just like, man, these dudes, like there's things about them that I know can improve and I think will improve. But just, hearing them come out of the gate with what they're doing already, and they're all young kids, but they're all teenagers. And I'm just like, and they have that Death Angel energy where I just look at them and I go, man, if these guys fucking keep at it, then people are going to be talking about Nemesis because they're a fucking great band. Anyway,
I've literally, as you were saying that, gone and saved their album on Spotify and given them a follow. So
not nice. Yeah, it's called False Reality, I think is the name of the album.
That's the one. That's the one.
It's you'll hear moments where you go, he just sounds like young Dave Mustaine, the vocalist.
Wow. I love it. Love it already.
And but it's it's great. But back to Ultraviolence, like it's that sort of thing where Ultraviolence is to me the best example of that, of a young thrash band just
killing it.
Literally, yeah. It's just like bowling a strike your first time out. And if they had continued to do 2 more albums that were in the similar vein as this, I still would probably be putting them in my top 3. But the fact that they so quickly evolved and still young dudes, it's crazy. So I just, that we matched up on our number 3, but I'm anxious to get to 2 and 1 because those are both, to me, these are 2 of the best thrash albums of the 80s. And using the word thrash is doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so much more than that.
Yeah. So let's move on. Let's see if we've matched up all the way. Here we go. I'm doing the drum roll.
My
What's your
number
number
two
two?
is Frolic Through the Park.
Boom.
Hey.
We have matched up with our top three. My number two is also the 1988 classic Frolic, Frolic, Frolic to the Park.
Cool. Well, that works out great. You know, you said Frolic three times. Song starts off third floor. Um,
Ah.
yeah, see, yeah, this was meant to be. This Death Angel thrashed so we could rank. Um, yeah, no,
Yeah, I agree.
it's not wrong. So
Nope.
yeah, so third floor already better production than the debut with a bit
Yep.
more low end to it. Good opener too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Road Mutants, badass thrasher. Why do you do this? Some serious punk influence on this one.
Yep.
Um, got Bored, some funk metal creeping in.
I
Me likey.
That song is so weird still to me, and it was a fucking
Yeah,
single. They had a fucking music video for it and everything. And I'm always just like, who chose that song? Because on the album, I love it, but taken out of context and as a single, I'm like, did this really get a whole lot of
yeah.
fans?
I'm bored.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm bored. It's great. It's a great song though.
Absolutely. Now here we are again with another episode of now that's what I call an 80s metal song title. We have Devil's Metal. Um, yeah,
That is very 80s right there.
yeah. We have Confused. Now here's something cool. I've mentioned in this episode that there's some Alice in Chainsy moments in later Death Angel. There's
Yeah.
actually Alice in Chainsy moments that predate Alice in Chains on this stuff, and I've heard quite a bit of that in Confused.
So
Which is
this is
cool.
'88, where there would have been an Alice in Chains. It just would have been Alice in Chains with a Z,
Yeah,
with a Z
with
at the end.
with a spandex wearing Lane singing about chicks as opposed to his addiction, but um, we
I
got
like
Guilty of
the
Innocence.
way you said that. I just thought you said his dick because there was a big emphasis on the dick and addiction when you said that.
Yeah.
His addiction.
Is it Jane's addiction? Lane's addiction? Man, the 90s are beginning to make sense.
Yep.
But yeah, Guilty of Innocence. There's just something so instinctively headbanging about this sort of skank beat riffage, you know?
Yeah.
To the point where I slept funny on my neck the other night and it's not quite recovered yet and it hurts like hell, but I still found myself doing the little head nod, you know?
Yeah.
Neck muscle permitting, of course, but you know, um, but yeah, open up, getting a little funky again. Yeah, that's another
Hmm.
me likey. Shores of Sin is awesome stuff. Now, here's something funny. Cold Gin,
Yep.
Kiss cover. Strangely enough, Skid Row, the band we covered last time, also covered this song.
Yeah.
So I'm officially changing Cranked and Ranked here on in, not only as a Kiss only podcast, but a Cold Gin only podcast. All Cold Gin all the time, just various versions of Cold Gin.
I love that they chose that because how not thrash can you get for a cover song? Because like
Yeah,
at this point, a young thrash band would be like, "Oh, we're going to put a cover song in here. What's it going to be? Exciter by Judas Priest or something like that." You know, it's like
yeah.
it's not going to be Cold Gin by Kiss, but I'm like, I love it. I love that they did that.
But again, that's that thing of risk taking, weird little choices that
Yep.
make the album that much more exciting. And it comes from a place of here's something I miss about 80s metal and this specific era of late 80s early 90s, right? They were putting out serious music, but they weren't taking themselves too seriously.
No.
Nowadays every fucking band has to look moody as shit, like they're not having any fucking fun,
Yeah.
right? And if you so much as fucking smile, you're a poser. Get the fuck out of here with that. It's entertainment. It's supposed to be fun. If you connect with it on a deeper level, that's great. But don't shit in my bowl of cereal just because it's not metal enough, you know.
Man, that was a
Yeah,
old head caliber rant right there from you. I appreciated
yeah.
that.
Eddie's escaped his cage. But yeah, uh, call in the animal unit. So yeah, mind rape. I love an echoey vocal. Um, this album shows some evolution. The band is finding their unique voice a little more now. I mean, they had a new unique voice out of the gate, but it was still very much rooted in the thrash thing.
Yeah,
This opens a lot more doors
yeah,
to what we'd get with our joint first pick, but you
yeah.
haven't talked about Frolic yet. So
No, yeah. Frolic is a huge step forward, and
yeah,
I love the fact that it sounds like an album from like the best way that I can describe it is like you're at your high school and it's lunchtime. Everyone's in the lunchroom at your school, and in walks Death Angel. And Death Angel, the lunchroom is filled with all these other thrash bands. And Death Angel walk in, and everyone's just like, "Hey, what's up, Death Angel? What's up?" And everybody loves Death Angel, but Death Angel are all like, "All right, guys, we're gonna go sit way over here in this corner by ourselves later." And they literally just like separate themselves from the crowd. They didn't
yeah,
need to. They didn't need to. They could have still just put a lot more sort of straightforward thrash, because
yep,
a lot of other bands were doing that, but they didn't. They literally were just like, and I don't know if it was on purpose or that's just their personalities and how those five people, gelled and wrote music together. But either way, like for somebody like me that's always felt like he didn't quite fit in anywhere, that's why I love the first three Death Angel albums so much, because to one person they'll just be like classic thrash, and I'll always be like, but what about all the other things? Like there's all these other
yeah,
things on there. Like if you want to say classic thrash and say Rain and Blood, great, because that's just thrash from beginning to
yeah,
end. But then yeah,
yeah,
and then you get to like Frolic Through the Park, and it's just a band not only setting themselves apart from the crowd, but almost like just completely turning their backs on the crowd and just being like,
yeah,
"Look, you guys led the way, and you're great and all, but we're on some other shit here." Um, the members of the band call Frolic Through the Park an odd album, and I would agree, and that's why I love it, because everything about the album, from the album title to the album artwork to the songs on it, make it one of the most unique thrash metal albums of the 80s.
yeah. Because
And
it's weird is cool, you know?
it looks
That's
like a progressive rock album, almost on the album
yeah,
cover. And there are ways that you could call this progressive. I mean, for sure. But I just love that there's so many unexpected places that they go. And this one is almost like when we get to Act 3, I feel like it's a much more mature, and I feel, it's very well put together. Whereas Frolic Through the Park almost has this feeling of when they were putting it together, they were all like, are we sure about this? I mean, it feels good. Let's see what happens. And it just feels so fun. Just like this band that's just like, fuck it. Let's do these things. And they're sort of just branching out and pushing what is expected of them, not only in the quality of what they're doing, they're surpassing that, but at the same time, they're just like, yeah, we don't necessarily need to play by everybody's rules to be a thrash band. And it's fucking great. I just think that Frolic to the Park, out of all of their albums, Frolic is the one to me that I feel like I get more and more out of it every time I listen to it. And that's pretty amazing for a group of young people in '88. So yeah, easily my number 2, but
I'm
not our joint number 1.
I tell you what, that's really what you said about the album cover as well for Frolic Through the Park. I'm looking at it right now. I've got it up in a little tab, and it
Hmm.
genuinely. If you erased the Death Angel logo, put Frolic Through the Park in a bit of a smarter looking font, and slap the Rush logo on it somewhere, it would fit.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
genuinely like it could pass for a Pink Floyd or a Rush album cover.
yeah. It's great. It's a great album cover.
You know, I've never really like, I mean I've always known what it looked like, but I've never really given it any thought.
Yeah,
That's These guys are on another level, dude.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They whatever it was, man, they had the good shit. But that brings us to our joint number one, which is a absolute classic of the thrash metal. Like, if you make a top
Yeah.
10 thrash albums and this isn't on it, are you really thrash, bro?
Yeah.
So yeah, our joint number one, Act Three
Get
from
out of my house.
1990. Act Three, their third album, hence the name Act Three. I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Okay. Well, Act 3, Seemingly Endless Time.
Oh,
An
fuck.
incredible open.
Dude.
Oh, there it is. There you
Dude,
go.
is it
There we
one
are.
of the best like thrash openers? Like, it's so good. Oh man. Anyway, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I knew it wouldn't take long for that to
Yeah.
happen.
No.
We got Stop, which is total 1-2 punch. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you get Veil of Deception, and you think, oh, this is the acoustic moment because it's 1990 and thrash bands are showing that they can play pretty little quiet bits on occasion. But then it turns out to be a mostly acoustic driven song.
Yeah.
And it's fucking awesome, you know?
Yeah. 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 No fucking interludes for these guys. Full on acoustic song.
Yeah. The organization cranks up the punk a little bit. Discontinued is our first little bit of the funk metal flavor.
Yeah.
And
love it.
there needs to be more slap bass in metal today. There's
Funk
not
metal
enough.
in general. Where are the funk metal bands? There's
Gaping hole in the market that we need to fill.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
At least two people I know would like to hear some funk metal.
Absolutely.
You're watching both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Leading the funk metal revival, one isolated internet person at a time. But yeah, a room with a view, just gorgeous balladry for a thrash band.
Absolutely.
Stagnant. Fuck me, man. That groove in Stagnant. And that funk section too, even better.
Yeah.
XTC, a clever little spelling of ecstasy,
Hmm.
is a good old thrash song. I mean, there's going to be good old thrash songs on here,
Yeah.
but there's also other cool stuff on here too. Disturbing the Peace, love a 6/8 riff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Falling Asleep is a killer closer, and this is. I feel confident in saying that this isn't just their masterpiece. This is a masterpiece of metal,
Yeah.
especially of its era. Yeah, it's a holy shit trilogy, evolution from Ultraviolence to Act 3.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder what the fuck happened, because they broke up like a year later.
Do you not know?
One of them left to go to school or something, right?
Nope. I will clue you in when I'm talking about
Oh.
Act 3.
Okay.
So before we get there, let me throw my few cents on Act 3. This album to me is their perfect album because they have streamlined the sort of odd things that they were wanting to do, and it comes in. It basically makes up this amazingly well written variety of songs that feels like a cohesive album, but you can't get too comfortable in any one thing. And every turn is so well done. All the musicianship, everything is just so well done on this album. And it's like they were mature enough to really like understand who they were as a band, but also how to pull this shit off. And this was a major label debut for them. And in my opinion, the strength of this particular album, if they hadn't gone through what they went through right after this, to me they were set for Metallica heights at this point.
Yeah.
If they had followed that path. So what happened was Death Angel were booked to be on the Thrash of the Titans tour, the one with Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, and Death Angel.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be Alice in Chains, and
Right.
and
See.
then they were on tour. Before that tour hooked up, they had started on a tour for Act 3, major label album, really great albums coming out, a lot of a lot of talk about this band, and then they get into a really bad van accident where
Oh
I
man,
think
that
one of
sucks.
the drummer was hospitalized and one of the guitar players was badly injured, and the drummer was so badly injured that they were like, well, you're not going to be able to play drums for a really long time. And so instead of they literally, I think they got another drummer to fulfill like a couple dates, but then they all just said, we don't want to do this. If our brother, the drummer can't do it, we're just not going to do it. And I think at that point also, I think Mark had wanted to leave to do other things. So it was just like this perfect storm a perfect crash, I guess. Like it's it almost like that thing
Yeah.
just set everything in motion to where boom, the trajectory you were on, it's canceled. It's now been canceled.
Fate just went, nope.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it sucks because, it's weird to think about this series of incidents because if Death Angel had continued to tour and had jumped on Thrash of the Titans, I think they would have blown up to where they were bigger than all the rest of those bands. I'm even including Anthrax in that. I love Anthrax way more than Death Angel. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. But I think if their trajectory had continued, the next album would have been maybe not Black Album big, but up there as a really big monumental album for a metal band, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same
like a
time,
possible, I was going to say like a possible 92, 93 release that would just be like, fuck, dude.
yeah, that we would be, ejaculating all over today or whatever. But I think about that and I go, man, it sucks that didn't happen for them. But then at the same time, would Alice in Chains have gone to be the band that they are if they hadn't been put on that tour? I mean, maybe they still would have, because I feel like the strength of Man in the Box, it would have blown up anyway. But I almost feel like I love Alice in Chains so much that I like that that's their story, that they very early on were on an all thrash metal tour.
Yeah.
So it's weird to think about that. But when it comes to Death Angel, my love for these first 3 albums is why I have a hard time getting excited for what they're doing now. And it sucks because they're still such a good band and still putting out such great music. But I put on an album like Act 3 and I'm just like, holy fuck, it's unmatched in so many ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a when it comes to, I would still put it in the 80s metal. See, and we came out in 90, but we've talked about that.
We all know that the 80s weren't fully gone till about 93, 94 anyway, so,
Yeah. But so I really think that Act 3 is an absolute classic, and it is, and I also feel like it's not really understood the way that it should be, because I think that it doesn't get talked about as much because it's just looked at as, oh, it's, classic thrash album, but there's these other more classicer thrash albums. And I'm like, nah, I think you're doing the album a really big disservice by just labeling it a thrash album. It is, but it's so much more than that. And like, I can't think of another band that was putting that kind of variety and that kind of an experience into one album Like
Yeah.
there aren't. Like there's amazing fucking music, you know? Like if you're gonna put this album up next to like fucking Rust in Peace, forget about it. Rust in Peace is just, or Master of Puppets, like these big, amazing albums. But
Yeah.
those albums are, for what they don't really deviate from what they are. And they're amazing songwriting, amazing production, amazing performances. But Act Three is just like its own thing. It's
Yeah.
literally just an album that I can't compare it to any other record. And so
Yeah.
when somebody's like, thrash album, Act Three, I'm like, I love that you love it, but come on, let's give it its props. It is way more than that. Anyway.
Absolutely. Which makes it that much more infuriating that that is the one album that's not available on fucking Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I
Is
don't
it
know.
on-
I'm assuming it's because of the record label that it's on. That it maybe there's some weird.
Yeah.
It's in a limbo or something. I don't know.
Possibly. Well, it was their major label one, wasn't it?
They're only major. It was Geffen Records, I believe.
Damn.
So anyway, but Death Angel's still around, talking about them like they're dead.
Hey, yeah.
It's just it's a different band, a great band, but not to me. The first three. Damn. I am that guy. I'm that Metallica guy. First three Death Angel, then it's just not the same. So I get it, Metallica haters, but I don't care.
That's something I was thinking about today that you brought up earlier. Is I wish it was easier to excite me. I've
Yeah.
just, the problem is I've spoilt myself with the wealth of great shit that
Yeah.
came out during the era that we're talking about. And, a lot of people my age weren't exposed to that. So I can't blame them for not knowing or understanding it. But I always came from a mindset of, well, I don't want to be ignorant. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go check out where all of your stuff wouldn't be if this didn't happen. But in turn, I think that had an adverse effect where it's like, I feel like I grew up in a time that I didn't even fucking live through now. So I'm like kind of fucked.
Yeah.
It's made newer things. It's made it harder for newer things to impress me. New things do impress me,
Sure.
but not at the frequency that stuff from this period does. Like, there's killer shit that comes out now. I can think of several albums that have come out in the last few years that I really like and I regularly listen to. But you're right. It is one of those things where just this era just has some real pizzazz to it,
Well, I think it's just because it was the pinnacle of so many different kinds of music that were relatively new.
Yeah.
Like metal was relatively new. Also, my feelings about hip hop, relatively new genre. So once you get to the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, it's like this, combination of height of popularity with still some people very inspired. And so you put those things together, and it's like not only do you have some amazing musicians and songwriters who have amazing ideas, some of which haven't really been done before, but you also have the popularity and money behind it to really make it explode. And so
Yeah.
I just think, unfortunately, that's a thing that I think probably not going to happen again because, all this music, even the music that's popular today, it's all shit that's different versions of shit that has been around now for 30, 40 years. So, I mean,
The big thing that always sticks in my head when it comes to what you said with, people are inspired, it's relatively new, and there's major label backing behind it.
yeah.
The big thing I think of is the music video for Don't Call Me Dude by Scatterbrain. That had to have had a massive budget for all those costumes. Like,
and that I believe that's also on a major label. The first Scatterbrain. Yeah.
which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, like a song like "Don't Call Me Dude." To anybody watching this that hasn't seen that video, do yourself a favor, pause this, do it right now, and come back. And
or not
it was
just
killer,
that,
wasn't it?
yeah, not just that, but the fucking "Down with the Ship," that song in that video.
Yeah.
The fact that that was a single that they put out, and just that's that. I love that whole period because there's so much unusual music that never would have gotten the money and push that it got if it wasn't for that exciting time. And so you're not wrong. Like if I was your age, I'd probably feel the same way. I just was lucky enough to where I was old enough to at least experience it. I didn't quite grasp the magnitude of what was going on at the time, but I was at least there to to experience the stuff when it was new. But some people would say the same thing about, being a teenager in the 70s, and I wasn't. Yeah. But, imagine being a teenager around the time that metal is first starting and punk is first starting and all of this shit. So, it's a, I don't know. I just feel bad for anybody born after like 95 because it's just like, well,
Yeah, it's and my generation has its own stuff to be nostalgic about, but it's for us. I think it's more gaming. Like our MTV was games. I think there's like a definitive like block now of groupings of people that I think of. I think of the radio generation, and then I think the MTV generation.
Yeah.
And then there's me, the internet / gaming generation, where that's really, when I was born, games were still a little niche, whereas now they're arguably the most exciting medium being pushed at the minute, because there's some stuff coming out that I think, holy fuck.
But not just that. If you had told me, 20 years ago, people are going to be able to make a living just playing video games, I'd be like, how? How's that going to happen? But it happens. There are people making shitloads of money, more money than I make, and we put so much effort into these shows that we don't make shit.
You know what? You know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to have a little setup over in the corner, and I'm just going to be playing San Andreas the entire time, but it's going to be in a little bubble up here or something. And if people want a little bit of gaming content, they can look up in the corner and watch me run over a hooker.
Or coming soon, the Cranked and Ranked video game, which we will probably rip off Grand Theft Auto in some way or another. It'll be a game like Grand Theft Auto, but starring me and Eddie, and it'll be like missions or like go pick up the new album from Sepultura or something, and we'll create.
The crack dealer stole your demo tape. Hunt him down.
Oh yeah, that too. But I was saying we'd create a world where it just puts all of our favorite things into one fake city. So we'll have Stan Mikita's Donuts will be there that we go to at some point. It's like this is if only we had the money to put our dreams into fruition or whatever. All right, hold on. Before I forget, we just finished ranking Death Angel, so we have to do this because we do it every single time we finish a discography. Join in if you would like. It goes like this: 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we did it!
Hell yeah!
I hear dogs running around out there. They're like, "He's done. He's done."
That means food.
But yeah, Death Angel ranked. That was good. Death Angel, great
Hell
yeah. So yeah, we've I don't know where to go from this. Next week, we're doing another sort of offshoot show. Whether it's next week or the week after. If there's gaps in weeks, just know life gets in the way. But we haven't forgotten about you. We love all
absolutely.
of you, peanut butter platypuses out there.
There's been a lot of goings on in my personal life, moving,
good ones, good goings on,
good goings on. won't divulge for fear of internet haters trying to hone in on my address. But yeah, with that, that was a good time.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you again next time for the next good time. When we'll be, we'll be grooving and removing? We will be grooving and removing, but
Slashing and mashing.
no,
Is it?
no, show meeting right now.
Show meeting. Show meeting. Show
Oh, it is.
It is.
All right. Hey! I thought that's what it reminded me when I made that noise. Handsome Dan. Hey.
I'm not handsome Dan. Hey, how are you?
All right. So yeah. So it is a slashed and mashed.
Well, work is hard.
You're a freak with a microphone.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it will be a slashed and mashed next time with a classic band, but not necessarily from the classic era.
It's
I'm
much
winking
like
to
Star
the camera.
Trek: The Next Generation. In many ways, it's superior, but will never be as recognized as the original.
That is a really good point. What we'll be talking about fits that exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, next time that's what's going to happen. But this time we are done with Death Angel. Thank you very much for being here. You're all beautiful people. Peanut butter platypus to you all. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Later, dude.